Everyone. Today I'll be discussing a study by Jeff Kakuka and Saul Kassan, published in Law and Human Behavior in 2014. This study is titled Do Confessions Taint Perceptions of Handwriting Evidence? An Empirical Test of the Forensics Confirmation Bias. The main focus of this study is forensic confirmation bias, which occurs when forensic examiners' evaluations are unintentionally influenced by irrelevant information, such as a suspect's confession. This is important because if forensic decisions are influenced by biases, it can compromise the objectivity and accuracy of the legal process, potentially leading to wrongful convictions. Forensic confirmation bias refers to the tendency for forensics examiners' judgments to be swayed by information that should ideally be irrelevant to their analysis. For example, if an examiner knows a suspect has confessed, this knowledge might influence their judgment on other types of evidence, like handwriting or fingerprints, even if there is no direct connection between the confession and the evidence they're examining. This study is especially relevant to forensic science because it challenges the assumption that forensics analysis is purely objective. It's also important for the justice system as it suggests that contextual information can introduce bias into forensics evaluations, leading to unfair outcomes in criminal cases. The main research question here was whether knowledge of a suspect's confession would bias forensic handwriting examiners when evaluating handwriting samples. Kakuka and Kassan hypothesized that participants who knew about a suspect's confession be more likely to perceive handwriting samples as matching, even if the cases where the evidence was ambiguous. Essentially, they wanted to see if the confession alone would increase the likelihood of finding a match, illustrating forensics confirmation bias. To test their hypothesis, Kakuka and Kassan designed an experiment involving forensics experts and some non-experts for comparison. They split participants into two groups. One group was given handwriting samples to evaluate along with knowledge of the suspect's confession, while the control group evaluated the same samples without this additional information. Each participant was then asked to decide if the handwriting samples matched. The independent variable here was the presence or absence of confession information, and the dependent variable was whether participants judged the handwriting samples as a match. The results were striking. Participants who knew about the confession were significantly more likely to judge the handwriting samples as a match. Even when the evidence was ambiguous, this demonstrated that exposure to the confession biased their evaluations, leading them to find connections in the handwriting that may have not been there. Statistically, this effect was significant, confirming the researchers' hypothesis. These findings are a powerful example of forensics confirmation bias, showing how contextual information can sway forensic judgments. This is concerning because forensics examiners are often expected to provide objective, unbiased evidence in legal proceedings. When their judgments are unintentionally influenced by information like a confession, it can introduce errors that affect the fairness and accuracy of the justice process. This study has several important implications. Theoretically, it challenges the belief that forensic science is immune to cognitive biases. It shows that even experienced forensics experts are subject to confirmation bias. This aligns with broader research on cognitive biases in decision making, suggesting that biases can occur even in high stake professional contexts. Practically, the study highlights the need for blinding procedures in forensics analysis. Blinding would mean that forensics examiners are unaware of task irrelevant information like confessions, so their judgment remained unbiased. In the legal system, implementing these safeguards is essential for ensuring that forensics evidence remains reliable and objective. Without such measures, there's a risk that forensic confirmation bias could lead to wrongful convictions or unjust legal outcomes. While this study is informative, it does have limitations. For example, the sample size of forensic examiners was relatively small, and the study focused only on handwriting evidence, which limits generalizability. It's possible that different types of forensic evidence, like fingerprints or DNA, might be affected differently by confirmation bias. For future research, it would be valuable to explore how other types of contextual information, such as knowledge of a suspect's criminal history, might bias forensic decisions. Further research could also investigate the effectiveness of blinding procedures to reduce forensics confirmation bias across different forensic domains. Here are some examples of pilot tested handwriting stimuli selected for use in study one. This study by Kukuka and Kassin highlights the impact of forensic confirmation bias, showing that extraneous information such as confessions can bias forensic judgments. The findings suggest that blinding forensic examiners to irrelevant contextual information could help maintain the integrity of forensic evidence. Ultimately, addressing confirmation bias is crucial to upholding the objectivity and fairness of forensic science and, by extension, the criminal justice system. Thank you for listening.